Lewis Hamilton's first year at Ferrari was supposed to be a fairy tale, a historic reunion between Formula One's most successful driver and its most iconic team. But as the season unfolded, that dream began to fracture. The reality of Ferrari's technical struggles hit hard, and Hamilton found himself facing one of the toughest challenges of his career. The British driver, known for his adaptability and intelligence behind the wheel, suddenly had to face a car that refused to behave, a team still finding its rhythm, and expectations that had quickly turned into pressure. From the very first laps of preseason testing, Hamilton realized something was off. The SF-25 was fast in a straight line, but unpredictable in corners. The front end lacked stability, the rear snapped unexpectedly, and the brakes felt inconsistent. To most fans, it looked like a simple case of adaptation, a driver switching teams after more than a decade with Mercedes. But behind the scenes, it was much deeper than that. Hamilton wasn't just trying to learn a new car. He was fighting against a system built in a completely different philosophy. The first major issue was the braking system. Ferrari's brake setup, supplied by Brembo, operates with a distinct engine braking balance that Hamilton had never experienced before. For 12 years at Mercedes, he'd mastered a car that responded predictably under braking. But the Ferrari was the opposite, inconsistent, nervous, and at times almost chaotic. The brakes are so different, he said early in the year. They move around a bit more, and the engine braking system is something I've never used before. It might sound like a small technical nuance, but for a driver, braking defines confidence. It determines how late you can dive into a corner, how much you can trust the front tires, and how you set up the exit. In Hamilton's words, it became a lottery. Sometimes the brakes would bite perfectly. Other times, they'd fade or lock up without warning. That unpredictability made it nearly impossible to drive instinctively, and instinct has always been Hamilton's greatest weapon. Then came the balance issues. At Silverstone, Hamilton was brutally honest after a frustrating weekend. The car was really hard to drive, he admitted. It just has no stability. I go into corners and it's snapping. He fought through massive understeer in the opening laps, then sudden oversteer as the tires overheated. By mid-race, his tires were gone, and he was forced to back off just to survive. It was like fighting a wild animal, he said half-jokingly, but there was truth in that statement. The Ferrari wasn't working with him. It was working against him. The deeper issue wasn't just the balance itself, but how sensitive the car was to setup changes. Even small adjustments in ride height or camber could transform the handling completely. One weekend, it felt composed. The next, it was a nightmare. It's a combination of many small things, Hamilton said. But most of the time, it's just the setup. You make one change, and suddenly the whole car behaves differently. Ferrari's engineers tried to adapt the car around him, but their understanding of the SF-25's behavior remained limited. The car's aerodynamics were efficient on paper, but on track, the airflow over the rear end became unstable under load, especially in mid-corner transitions. That created the snappy behavior Hamilton complained about. The car simply didn't give him the feedback he needed. He could never be fully sure how it would react when he pushed to the limit. Communication between Hamilton and the team also became a topic of tension. In Spain, after finishing outside the top 5, Hamilton revealed that both he and Charles Leclerc had suffered massive performance-limiting issues during the race, but that the team didn't really want us to talk about it. It was an unusual statement for him, hinting at a deeper frustration. At Mercedes, Hamilton had built a decade-long relationship of trust with his engineers. Every issue was dissected openly, with a shared goal of progress. At Ferrari, the culture was different, more closed, more political. And that adjustment proved as difficult as learning the car itself. Yet, even through the frustration, Hamilton never pointed fingers. He acknowledged that the process would take time. I know I'm coming into a new culture, a new team, and it's going to take time, he told reporters. We're building something together. But the reality was harsh. The hype surrounding his move to Ferrari had created unrealistic expectations, not just among fans, but within the team itself. Many imagined immediate podiums and victories. Instead, the 7-time world champion found himself wrestling with a car that didn't seem to understand him. Emotionally, the season took a toll. After the Spanish Grand Prix, Hamilton admitted he was relieved to discover that a hidden technical fault had hindered his performance. It was a relief, he said. At least now I know why the car felt impossible to drive. That sentence revealed just how mentally draining the experience had been. A driver of his caliber expects precision. When the car fails to deliver, it's not just about losing points, it's about losing trust. The Ferrari's inconsistency also played a role in strategy decisions. Hamilton complained that qualifying setups often compromised his race pace. Sometimes we make the wrong call on Saturday, he explained. You lock yourself into a balance that you then have to live with for the whole race. Ferrari's engineers have historically struggled to predict how their cars will perform across different track conditions, and 2025 was no different. As the season progressed, Hamilton's frustration became more visible. At Imola, he described the braking system as a dice roll. In Baku, he struggled to find front-end grip all weekend. In Silverstone, the instability returned. And at Monza, the car's low downforce configuration exposed its biggest flaw, a lack of aerodynamic efficiency compared to Red Bull and McLaren. The SF-25 simply couldn't generate consistent downforce without destroying its tires. Behind closed doors, Ferrari admitted that Hamilton's feedback was brutally accurate. Team principal Frédéric Vasseur acknowledged that some of his comments made things sound worse than they were, but also conceded that his input was essential for long-term progress. Lewis is pushing us hard, Vasseur said. He's exposing weaknesses that we knew existed, but now we have no choice but to fix them. The good news for Ferrari is that Hamilton's experience is already reshaping the team. His engineers have adopted a more data-driven approach, using his feedback to refine the correlation between the simulator and real-world performance. Ferrari's development program for 2026, the first true Hamilton-influenced car, is reportedly being designed with his driving style in mind. Still, the road to success is long. The SF25 remains unpredictable, especially in long-run pace. The snapping rear end continues to appear on high-temperature tracks, and tire degradation remains a weak point. Hamilton has been open about how different the Ferrari feels compared to the Mercedes machines that made him a champion. The car demands a different way of driving, he said. It doesn't reward the same inputs I used for years. I'm still learning how to extract the most from it. But even in the middle of these struggles, Hamilton's presence has brought Ferrari something it desperately needed: belief. His professionalism, his relentless work ethic, and his ability to push through difficulty have begun to influence the atmosphere in Maranello. Engineers talk about a renewed sense of purpose. The garage feels more structured, more focused. The hope is that by the end of the season, these growing pains will translate into performance. In a way, this chapter of Hamilton's career mirrors his early days at Mercedes. When he joined them in 2013, critics doubted the move. The car was unstable, the team inconsistent. Yet, within a year, Mercedes became unstoppable. Hamilton often references that experience as motivation. "We've been here before," he said. "It takes time to build something great." Ferrari, however, is a different beast. The expectations, the media pressure, the weight of history, all of it magnifies every mistake. For Hamilton, that means every lockup, every radio message, every facial expression is scrutinized. But that's the cost of driving for the most legendary team in Formula One. As the season heads toward its final stretch, the big question is whether Hamilton can tame the SF25, or whether the car will continue to resist him. The upcoming races will test not only Ferrari's technical progress, but also Hamilton's patience and adaptability. If he can guide this team through its growing pains, his move to Maranello might one day be remembered not for the frustration of 2025, but for the foundation it built for future glory. Because that's what Ferrari and Hamilton now share: a mission to rebuild. Two giants, wounded but unbroken, learning to trust each other. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when Lewis Hamilton finally finds harmony with his machine, greatness usually follows.